Hi, this is Renee and Kent Miller and the Augmentation of Man, back with a lesson from the book, The Augmentation of Man, A Study in Renaissance.
Chapter 8, pages 166, 167.
And this is going to be on the conflict of the many managers that we may have in our lives. And so what we're talking about is letting others dictate what we do, letting others influence our decision making.
Why do we let others manage who we will be or who we are?
Yeah, and so the lesson begs us to look inside ourselves for the answer why we're letting others dictate our path for us, because clearly it's taking us off of our path, right? So,
well, when we do that, we lose ourselves. We become beholding to those that dictate to what our life is going to be like, and it puts us in a form of bondage because we tend to not do anything until we feel that we can confirm what they told us what we should do.
And so it takes us off of the path that we set out prior to our birth here for our learning purposes and diverts that path in another direction. Sometimes it's the other person is living vicariously through us. Sometimes we're dealing with very dictatorial type people, controlling people. And I think most often we see it with the parent and child relationship, right?
Yeah, and then when you become adult, you go to psychics or seers or whatever you think should direct your life rather than you trying to direct it yourself.
And so it's important, getting back to the parent-child relationship, it's important as parents that we guide our children, but let them ultimately determine the pathways for learning and for self-exploration, for even their ultimate jobs.
That's how they understand. Whether they fail or succeed, they learn from that particular event.
And it's hard to let your child fail, right? It's real hard, but there's valuable learning that comes out of it, and they will actually progress further and get to really know themselves at the soul level in allowing them to do that. Now, naturally, we want to guide our kids when it comes to drugs, alcohol, poor decision making.
We're not talking, that's extremely poor decision making, and we can't make excuses for them because it'll come back to bite us. We have to be honest with ourselves.
Even when they choose that pathway, there has to be consequences involved to correct their behavior.
Well, we want to protect them from the events such as drugs, alcohol, things of that nature. But we're talking about going to other people to create what they think their path should be.
And listening to our parents tell us, well, you should go in this direction with your job, your future job. So we're talking about trying to mold children, especially teenagers, to fit a direction that suits the parent instead of allowing the child to align to their true path, and it diverts them off of that true path and it stunts their spiritual growth.
Yeah, they should be allowed to be guided by their higher self, even though they don't realize that's their higher self. But as they learn, either from failure or success, they'll become better.
That's right, and that the consequences help to redirect their path. So we have to get back to that question of why do we let that happen? And we have to be truly honest with ourselves.
Because we want our kids to be what we didn't succeed or aspire in.
Or is it generated by ego?
And ego.
You know, like the parent who says, my child is going to be a doctor or my child is going to be a lawyer.
Bragging rights for the parents.
we have to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves, because if we're not, the excuses that we make hold us in bondage, because then we've got to live up to the excuse, and it may not be the truth. So we have to allow others to move about freely within good guidance, to be able to find their own path that's guided from within.
But we have to align to what we call universal consciousness. And we have to explain what universal consciousness is, but do we really know what it means?
I think most people don't. And so our own higher self-learning is interfaced with the universal consciousness. And if the purpose of creation is the expansion of consciousness, then our purpose, when we are aligned to the purpose of creation, is also the expansion of our own consciousness. And so, but there's a process that's involved in this. And so this process is dictated by universal laws and concepts. The concepts explain the reason for the laws, so that, you know, it's not just, no, you can't do that, but you explain why, if you do that, what's going to happen. And I'm talking about kind of an example from, say, a parental point of view. And in a larger picture, the universal laws don't tell you necessarily, no, don't do that, but they set parameters for consequences, for cause and effect, that result in a higher understanding and our growth in understanding.
What sets path for quantum learning, quantum paths. And that's very much like you explained to me one time. It felt like an octopus with many tentacles going out in different directions, trying to feel your way through what you think might be the different paths. And as you do that, you will touch the light side of the veil. You won't be able to go through the veil, but you'll touch the light side of it. And trying to learn why I'm doing this, who I am, where am I going?
So this is all coming from the inner guidance from within, where you're kind of feeling your way through. How that works is actually your level of vibration is correlated to your own individual level of understanding of multiple things. And we are casting our own vibration out into the field, and it goes out before us.
Yeah, well, a good example of this vibration, and many of you have gone shopping in a store, retail outlet, or whatever, and you're walking down an aisle, and someone approaches you with a big smile, you tend to smile back because you feel they have a good vibration. And you come across those that you look at them and you feel their vibration is not good, and you tend to back away. You take another aisle just to avoid them. And we're picking up the vibrations of others around us within 6 feet of us.
And we do it all the time, but we're unconscious of it. So we're reading vibration that is being put off by other people and making a decision about them based on how their vibration makes us feel.
How we feel about it.
And to be quite honest, is that it is an indicator, but we oftentimes, when that vibration doesn't make us feel good and we avoid that person, we tend to put it in the box of they're negative or they're at a lower level. And in reality, it could go both ways.
Yeah, we don't know. It's just a different vibration than ours.
It is enough of a discrepancy in the two vibrations where there is not harmony, there's disharmony, and it feels uncomfortable. And so I just want to bring this in. Okay. This is an example. We had been eating lunch in a restaurant, and a couple walks in, and I had finished lunch. Kent was still eating, and his head was down because he was focused on what he was eating. This couple comes in, and he was he was completely oblivious to this couple. but I immediately felt very uncomfortable. I mean, extremely uncomfortable. And while I'm sitting there, my mind starts to go off with this. And I start creating this whole story in my mind about this couple and how negative they must be and what they might have done. And, you know, it just went on. And then they sat down behind us, but I felt like, ooh, you know, I just feel like they're staring at us. And I just kept feeling all these very uncomfortable feelings. I never said anything to Kent. And so we get back home later that day. He decides to do a meditation, and we're in meditation. And into this meditation, at some point, I asked, who was this couple that was in the restaurant today? And why did they make me feel so uncomfortable? The answer was, they are not of here. And they were at a higher vibration than I was, where I had assumed that they were at a lower vibration. And so I think it's important that when people are channeling, when they're meditating, and when you meet people on the street, that you understand that it's, when you feel uncomfortable by their presence, it is not necessarily that they are the lower vibration. It may be you. And so that was my big lesson.
Yeah, we must be our own teacher, where we have to look back at our ancestral higher self, if you can call it that, and be our own teacher and arrive at a final understanding by ourselves. And we may not like our final understanding, but we learn from there.
So this understanding, the natural course of our spiritual growth takes place by the level of understanding that we are currently at has a particular vibration that it's attuned to. We put that vibration out. We're constantly emitting this vibration into the field around us. And what it's doing is it's starting to orchestrate events in the future that we aren't even aware of. And so as these events start to come into our parameter of view, then, and as they play out, we are supposed to reflect on those events, think about it, gather our information surrounding the event and especially the pathways that lead up to it, and then ask for spiritual guidance.
So allowing others to guide our own path is really blocking us from really learning and expanding ourselves.
And expanding the higher self. This is what is most important, right? And so we want to see a progression in our own lives of the fact that we have changed from the time we were, say, 20, when we get out of high school even.
Well, not everybody has changed.
And by the time that you're in your 40s and 50s, that you have changed significantly, because that shows that we have grown and we're learning.
Yeah, if you change. We've seen people in their 40s that still act like they're 20. So
that's because they're not doing their inner work, and they're not reflecting on the events in their lives. And a lot of that has to do with, I believe, they're using judgment on themselves, and they don't want to look inside because they're judging themselves, and it's painful. But this is not self-judgment. This is not judging others. This is allowing others to learn through natural consequences.
Keeps you from progressing forward, because free will is a universal law.
That's right. And so if we're not allowing someone else their free will, that goes against
the divine order of who we are.
That's right. So that's something to think about. You know, if we are imposing our will on other people, are we going against divine order? That's really something to think about.
Yeah,
That's a deep one.
So what is this word? What is it? It's
In the book.
yeah, the Greek and.
Okay, so there's this word that's mentioned in the book, and we highly recommend, if you have the book, you've got to look up the definitions in order to really understand the lesson. Because I think as we grow up, we are learning the language organically, but we don't look up all the words in the dictionary, and a lot of them have multiple meanings.
Or meanings that we thought of one thing and it really means another.
That's right. And so, and also, you know, we have to have, for our work, because of the new words that we get, we have to have the Greek and Latin root word dictionary, because there's just not words in our language that adequately describe the concepts that are being taught.
So pronounce this new Greek and Latin word.
So this is Chernerasis. Chernerasis, I think is the way it is. Chernerasis.
Which literally means?
And so it's a combination of a Greek root word and a Latin root word. And together, it literally means to tell one after another. And so when you translate into, say, an American or English way of thinking, that's telling somebody what to do all the time. Just consistently telling somebody what to do.
And you don't allow yourself to learn and learn within when somebody else does that. You're totally unlocked.
When you're allowing someone to tell you what to do all the time, you're not allowing your higher self to learn.
Learning process. Open.
The physical self, and through the physical self, the higher self. And so it is equivocal to being contradictory to the birth of one's understanding.
Right. So we hope you understand what we just got through trying to teach you to become more independent of yourself.
To follow your own path. And, you know, it's not easy, but it requires that quiet going within and feeling your way through. Just like the octopus, the tentacles that are reaching out there in the field, you're feeling your way through your life. You're not going to be told exactly what to do. This is guided by the senses, and so you will be moved and through your decision making. You will be moved through life, and your path.
Some of those decisions may not fit well with you after you make them.
That's right.
That's okay.
Because that results in a correction,
that's
right?
Right. It results in your learning and a correction. It is
no
not,
problem.
As long as the results are not life-threatening.
Or produce a total confusion in your understanding.
Yeah.
That's real important. We always have to find where all the dots connect, where clarity in our understanding is enabled and expanded on.
Right. So with that, we hope you continue on your journey and follow us on our journey and learn from everything we've been trying to put forward. And we hope that
we have a podcast.
Oh, yes.
I want to mention that. So we're really excited about the podcast. This is great for people who commute. You can turn it on. It's on anchor.fm, The Augmentation of Man with Kent and Renee Miller. And it's going to be available on all your standard podcasting stations, your iTunes.
And we're going to try to expand that.
So that will expand out to more podcasting channels as we get more and more podcasts loaded up. So check us out there. It's going to be a little bit different than these YouTube videos where we're going to choose a topic and we're going to connect the dots
like
and
this topic
see
here.
a bigger panoramic
If
view.
you can't sit and watch this topic, possibly you could capture this topic on the podcast, because this is a good everyday topic.
Mm-hmm. And so we'll start out with little different things. We might bring in some of these lessons also. And so it'll be another avenue for you to receive this valuable spiritual information.
And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.
And check out our blogs. They're at verdience.com.
Anyway, have a great week.
And peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment.